Well, wow, what a game that was. Fantastic game of 2020 cricket. Thanks for joining us on Bowl Fast Talk Straight. After a fascinating game, World T20 semi-final, when New Zealand stunned England and knocked them out of the World T20. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Well, John Norman, where do we start? Are we getting our breaths back? I know it's been an hour since the game's finished, and we've had half an hour on the Cricket Collective, but I still can't believe England have lost that cricket match. Fantastic start to it for England. They got through, decent-ish power play on a pitch which the ball sat into the surface. I thought 166 was a in-game score. Bear in mind, you've got to bat second semi-final to get to the final on a surface which I didn't think was as good as what they have been playing on. Moeen Ali was excellent again. I thought that little cameo at the end of along with David Milan, I thought a little cameo at the end, 17 off 10 balls from Livingston might have just took it a bit out of New Zealand's reach. And when Martin Guptill and Kane Williamson went in the power play, I'm thinking, let's get ready for Sunday. But it wasn't to be the case.
I tell you what, shall we talk as though the match had finished its course as it should have done after that 16th over? Okay, so 16, right? This is what we would have said, right? If the match 16 over stage, if the electricity was gone and we would just assume what was going to happen, New Zealand needed 70 odd or something from 4 overs, or 54 from the last 4 overs. Can't remember exactly. Yeah, 54 from 24. Right, this is what we would have said. Wow, just shows the strength of depth that England have possessed, that they're missing 4 first-team regulars and they still could get to a final of a T20 World Cup. After all the criticism and the comments about David Milan, timing is everything. Weighed in with a really integral 41 from 30. And then the man we all wanted to see score runs, Moeen Ali, 51 from 30 on a sluggish pitch. Both batsmen took a while to get in, but experience told in the end. And after those 2 wickets from that man, Chris Woakes, who wouldn't even be playing if it wasn't for Jofra Archer, New Zealand were behind the 8 ball all the way. They gave it a good go towards the end, but in the end, it was always going to be England's win, and they closed it out. That is essentially what we would have been saying right now, right? Owen Morgan,
absolutely, 100%.
Owen Morgan's done it again, and the reason we're not doing that is because of a couple of players that we would just never have spoken about. I mean, Daryl Mitchell was on the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2 on Tuesday. We never even mentioned him when we did a New Zealand preview at the start of the tournament. Nobody expected him to play, let alone open. Devon Conway, I've been waiting for him to make the error behind the stumps that was always coming because he's a part-time keeper. It happened. That was going to be the narrative. New Zealand pay the penalty for not picking a proper keeper. No, that didn't happen. What actually happened was Devon Conway and Daryl Mitchell, despite a score rate going at about 12 and over, never ever looked panicked. They kept going. And then Jimmy Neesham, one of the nice guys of cricket. He's got a sense of humor. We all love Jimmy Neesham. He's one of those Twitter. You're not on Twitter so much, but if you were, you'd realize that Jimmy Neesham is widely loved because it seems, even for a Kiwi, he seems like he's got a sense of humor and a touch with reality, and he comes in and he turns the game in 1 over. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. We've got some questions in. Get your questions in to Bowl Fast Talk Straight. There's a question already. In fact, I'm just going to jump onto this question right now. Something that we just mentioned on the following on podcast. Arslan Ahmed says, do you think teams are too dependent on matchups as opposed to gut feel? More men, Ali, Santeria, I think he means Santner, Willie should have been in to protect CJ as it was not his night. Now, let's move the CJ thing aside for a second. But we saw today Glenn Phillips bowl as many overs as Mitchell Santner. We didn't see Moeen Ali bowl at all. We saw England throw 11 overs of pace, which went for 101 runs. Matchups, man. It's all about matchups. Why don't you just throw the ball? You're a former bowler. If your captain turns to you and said, yeah, no, the matchup isn't quite right.
I would have said, "Not pick me.
What am I doing here?
Just don't pick me. I'll carry drinks." That would be my reply. The matchup. Why is the matchup in such a way that you say, "Oh, well, he's not suited bowling at the right hander. He's not suited." Yeah. I think a lot of that stuff is people behind the scenes creating a role and a job for themselves. And they do.
Yeah,
it's like, don't get me wrong. I came into the game at the back end of the good generation when 6 o'clock you all met in the bar and you went for a pint. Great. Me and Butch, talk about them great days when we were on Talk Sport. Talk about them great days where you'd pass cars going up and down the motorway to different first-class matches, and there'd be 2 in a car, 3 in a car with their shirts, coat hangers and jeans, and shoes nicely polished because you were away for 3 days off on a jolly to play a first-class cricket match away. Now they don't even take jeans and t-shirts. They go in tracksuits, and they're not allowed to go anywhere. And I came into the end. I came at the end of that, at the start of the sports science brigade, where you have to go in the gym and you have to watch what you eat. And I was like, it's my career. If I want to make it a mess of it, I'll make a mess of it. If I want to enjoy myself, I will enjoy myself.
You did all right for yourself.
If somebody's 22 yards away and you don't believe I'm good enough to bowl at him, well, there's 2 things in this. 1, give me the ball because I'm going to show you. 2, if they think that way, just don't pick me and pick somebody else. I'm not a big fan. I'm a big fan of understanding the game, having a matchup where if it is so one-sided that you wouldn't put somebody in position against somebody else. I look at the one thing I've done in the last 2 weeks. I've praised Jason Roy so much and how much of a massive loss he is. I praised him so much because if you go on big matchups, Jason Roy should never have been picked in this squad because the surface that we're playing on and the bowlers that we're going to bowl in the power play, i.e. the slow bowlers, because he's got a poorish record. What's Jason Roy gone and done? He's gone and got himself in a position to make himself better against that. And he's been fantastic. So good on him. And that for me, but all-rounders as well, going back to the Mo and Ali stuff. Yes, I agree. I would have played hindsight. They say hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I would have gone with David Willey. I said that before the game, and I was saying that halfway through the tournament that I think England are 1 batsman heavy.
Yeah, you've been consistent.
I have been consistent on that. But what I will say on this is an all-rounder, and I played with one of the better, the best characters going, and Andrew Flintoff, if he batted well in the first innings, Michael Vaughan threw them the ball within the first 10 overs of a test match. Or it wouldn't be any plan, whatever the grand plan is, because he knows for a fact he is sky high. He is just give him the ball, let's get around him, and we'll pick the pieces up once he runs out of juice. Mo and Ali's just got 50 off 37 balls in the first innings at the semi-final of a World Cup and not bowled in second innings. You can go on matchups as much as you want. That, for me, I would be questioning. On the other hand, it worked. Don't get me wrong. The way Mo and Ali not work air bowling, Morgan's plan right up to the 16th over was working. But New Zealand consolidated in that middle period fantastically well with Mitchell and with Conway. But if you've got Mo and Ali bowling and you're needing 12 and over in the semi-final of the World Cup, the non-household name of and the pressure situation against somebody like Mo and Ali, who was just won the IPL, I think there would have been a different outcome in that middle period where they consolidated. Wow. But look, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing on that subject. It's not on the Willey subject because I think David Willey should have played instead of Sam Billings, who probably touched the ball about 3 times all day. And it would have like a question and he got asked, it might have took pressure off Jordan nearer the end or in that middle period. That's not where the game was lost. The game was lost in the 16th over. When Chris Jordan bowled around the wicket to Jimmy Neesham, his first ball wasn't in the slot and it got banged out of the park. I'm not sure what Jordan was thinking. And I'd like, I'd be intrigued to know. And it possibly, you talk about matchups, could possibly have come down to that Jordan might have tried to second guess Nisham, because I think they've played together in the IPL for Kings 11, Kings 11 Punjab, I think it was. I think we're both in the same side, or in the same squad. And maybe Jordan's had an idea of maybe he's going double bluffing him or whatever, but his execution of his plan didn't work. And his best ball was his last ball, and it was the one he bowled over the wicket, wide off stump into the Yorker length. And it was the only dot ball he bowled in that fateful over. And New Zealand went from being beat by 20 runs to winning with an over to spare. And good on New Zealand for getting the game deep, identifying the situation, and executing what was a one-over match, where if England bowled a good final 4 over, just one good final 4 over, it was game over. And New Zealand needed one big final 4 over, which they identified, and they got themselves not only back in the match, but got themselves over the line.
Yeah, I mean, Goffey was saying something similar. After with 3 overs to go, I said it's New Zealand's game. Goffey was saying no, one good England over and it's England's game. But it wasn't to be. Our pit's it's in India morning, 1:30 a.m. this time, but I'm watching, mate. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. G Paul. Hello to you, G Paul, as well. Was England today less fearless than what this team approaches? Thought they were at least 15 to 20 runs short with a decent pitch and wickets in hand. It's a good point, because I know on the following on podcast you thought 166 was a decent score. I wouldn't disagree, but I never at any point thought that England were ahead of the game, properly ahead of the game. They were when New Zealand were 2-0 down, 2-0, 2 wickets down, and they were behind the game after the power play. But at the halfway stage, I didn't think that I never thought England were a bit like when India were playing Pakistan, it's a little bit like that anyway. At no point were England completely dominating the bowling. And that, let's be honest, if I was Pakistan fan, I'd be a little bit worried, because today I thought some of the luck went against New Zealand. And you just feel there was a couple of inside edges past the stumps. There's a few plays and misses. I think England could have been 2 or 3 down inside the power play. They weren't. On another day, I think New Zealand actually restricted England to about 145, 150. And it didn't happen for them today with the ball. They kind of got out of jail a little bit. I'd be worried if I was Pakistan. But simply put, did England essentially forego their all-out attacking instincts today?
No, I don't think they did. I think G. Paul makes a good point in saying about the team's approach. I think what you've got
here, by the way, Steinlager for my New Zealand friends watching.
Very nice. Yeah, I'll go and get mine in a minute, but I think sometimes you've got to understand as well that the bowling units are very, very good. The 2 bowling units are exceptional. That's why I thought 166 was a good score, because New Zealand's bowling unit is a very, very good bowling unit. I didn't expect England to get 180, 190. I didn't think the pitch was as good as what that has been. I didn't think the pitch was as good as Sharjah for the game against South Africa, even though Sharjah is a smaller ground. But you also got to look, the higher you go through the tournament, or the best teams playing against each other. Yes, there's some ridiculous explosive batsmen on show. You've also got some great bowlers on show. 2 of the best 2 economical bowling units, I think, in the tournament so far in the power play have been England and New Zealand. I think Pakistan are just close, not far behind. And you look at Australia's unit tomorrow, you've got Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins. That's not bad either when it comes to power play bowling. So I think when you see a score of 166, you've also got to look at the bowlers that have been bowling on show. And that's why I thought England's bowling unit would defend 166, especially with 4 seam options, 3 spin options. 3 seam options. Is it 3 seam options, 3 spin options?
Yeah.
For England, I thought, you know what, that's a decent score. If England bowl like they have bowled in this tournament so far, the win by 10 runs. They win with a good distance, and that's a good distance in 2020 cricket. But 1 over changed the game, and 1 over of brilliance, we said small margins, and 1 over of brilliance did change the game. Jordan gets his over again, gets himself to calm himself. He doesn't go for 23, he goes for 13, and that's the difference between winning and losing. It's just the small margins. So when it comes to totals, I think you've got to look at the bowling units that are on show and balance that out with what the total is from the first innings and whether the team can get it. If you turn around tomorrow and Pakistan bat first and get 166, I expect the Pakistan bowling unit on any given surface to defend that because of the skill level that they've got at this moment in time. That's got them into the semi-final of the World T20.
Quick question for you, okay? Paul Bainbridge. Hey, Paul, thanks for getting involved in Bowlfast Talk Straight. Says, what do you both think of Liam Livingston's emergence as a bowler? Now, of course, in the UAE or in subcontinent conditions, Livingston's leg spin, off spin, depending who's batting, is obviously going to be a big part of the makeup of a team. He actually bowled his 4 overs for 22 today, I think. Moeen Ali didn't bowl at all, as you may mention. England play West Indies at the end of January, 5 T20s. That's their next T20 action, basically. 5 T20s. What's the team? Stokes is back. Ali's just hit 50 and taken a bundle of wickets. Haven't really seen Livingston with the bat. Let me know what you think about the emergence of the bowler to answer Paul's question. Who is England's team? If everyone's fit, okay, Archer's not going to be fit, but who is England's team for the West Indies?
Yeah, I think Livingston's here to stay. I think his bowling has come on no end, but I think there's always been a skill element to Liam Livingston. I think he's one of these freak characters that can throw, chance his arm at anything. He's a fantastic fielder, confident guy. I would have had him in the Ashes. I really would. I would have had him in the Ashes.
I think I would as well. I would.
His temperament. I think his temperament is perfect to go to Australia. I look at, and it's there's no comparison because their careers. If he could be 60% of the player that Kevin Peterson is, then he'll have a fantastic career in Test match cricket. But I look at when Kevin came into the Ashes in 2005, largely down to where Liam Livingston is at the minute, give or take a big score in a one-day game. A couple of big scores in a 50-over game, but he hasn't played a lot of 50-over cricket. I just think he's got the right ticker, the right showman, and the right up and at him to go at Australia.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, with all the respect to Jack Leeds, and I know it's a bit of a ridiculous thing to say, but Livingston playing at 8 or 7.
Yeah,
at least in the squad, not for the first test, but
no, I
totally agree. Anyway, you continue what you're saying.
The middle period for you pick him as a batsman. His bowling is a bonus every now and again in Test match cricket. I don't think we're looking at a Liam Livingston all-rounder role for England in the red ball format anytime soon, if ever. I think he's a one-day bowler who is a bit like Joe Root. Probably not as good in Test match cricket option would be from Joe Root's point of view, but somebody that can fiddle you 5 or 6 overs in a 50-over game, potentially bowl you 1 or 2 in a 2020 game, or 4 if he's on a roll, but he's in there to be that destructive batsman. So from that point of view, I think he's here to stay. The person he's not vulnerable. The person that has been questioned from a batting department would be Owen Morgan. But you'd never ever even contemplate dropping the leader because the captain gives you so much. And he gave a great interview at the end there, and it was he was 1 over from a bowler that potentially he would have been in another final. So for me, I think Morgan stays. I think we need him to stay. I think this side needs him to stay. I think he's still good enough to stay, and I think it's important that he does stay with this unit and takes them forward. I think the obvious choice where everybody wants Ben Stokes to bat, and I think the obvious choice is at number 3. You go Roy. If you go Roy, Butler, Stokes, Bairstow, then you've got a Morgan, Livingston, Ali, flexibility at 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's not a bad side, is it? Really? So that for me would be the way I'd go. They give you options. Ben gives you another option with the ball if need be, and you with what you've got. Archer would come in for me for a Wokes or a Joe or a John in that team if he was to become fit. I think our spin twins I've got another 2 tournaments left in them, and I think they've been brilliant again. In Ali and Rashid, I think we've got. I think in them 2 we haven't. I know there's been a lot, and we don't really want to go down that road of what's happening at Yorkshire. But when you talk about 2 role models of English cricket, we've got 2 absolute beauties from the Asian community there. You know, Mo and Ali and Adil Rashid are 2 great role models for English cricket, for the Asian community to get them into playing. And that, for me, feels so proud of the England cricket team for the way, not only the way they perform, but the way they are as people in that and performers in that group. And there's obviously, because there's a lot being said of what's happening in the cricketing world in England at this moment in time. But I think that core of the unit that they've got here, I still think that stays. And when you go to Australia in 12 months' time to play another World T20 World Cup, England will be one of the favourites because naturally they'll be stronger because they'll have Archer and Stokes to play. And, you know, with what they've had in this tournament, so, you know, to pick from, but also miss out. I still think England are going to be one of the favourites for Australia in 12 months' time.
Let's hear from the captain, actually. Oh, captain for now. I'm sure that question has been asked today. Owen Morgan speaking following the defeat today.
We were devastated. To be on the wrong side of a close game is not easy to take. I thought we fought unbelievably well today on a wicket that didn't necessarily suit our batting, but we managed to post in and around a par score, and we were brilliant with the ball. We were right in the game probably until Jimmy Neesham came to the wicket, if not ahead of the game. I think throughout both innings everybody struggled to clear the ropes on both sides, and I think that was just the nature of the pitch. So yeah, you have to take your hat off to him. He played really well.
Did you feel at the halfway stage that actually, you say it was a par score, did you think you'd done a little bit better? Were you feeling quite confident at that stage?
I wouldn't say confident. Sort of the method that New Zealand have used is obviously come hard in the power play, steady the ship throughout the middle, and then come hard again at the end. So when you take 2 big wickets as early as we did, you feel ahead of the game. And they're trying to, I suppose, steady the ship. And I think we managed to keep them at bay for quite some time. So they did well again to wrestle back momentum and then just obviously put them in a commanding position.
Steady the ship. That's what they say when Kane Williamson's at the crease, but of course he was out. Harish says, congrats to New Zealand. But the sad part is that they're not as strong as England to win the cup. They will only go to the finals to lose out. Well, again, you know, we keep writing these teams. Harish is right in a way. Whoever New Zealand come up against, they will be the underdog with the majority of people watching and with the bookmakers. But, you know, this is their 3rd final in a row. You know, 2 World Cup, 50 over World Cup finals, and now a T20 World Cup final.
Yeah, I agree. And I look at that though, and you're right. You go Australia, they've got Maxwell, they've got Stoinis, they've got Warner, they've got Cummins, they've got Stark. Zampa's done well in 2020 cricket. You flip it over, you've got Rizwan, you've got Babar Azam, Fakir Zaman, and then you go down at Freedy. You think, you know what? And then you look at the New Zealand side and you think, Williamson, Bolt, played IPL cricket, Guptill has had a good tournament, but then you always look at the other side and think that they've got more superstars in their side, so they should win. But New Zealand have World Test Championship, 1 run away from being 50 over World Cup winners in 2019. They're now in the T20 World Cup final. They're not there because they're a bad side. They're there because they're a side. And that, for me, because they're a side, is what's going to make them harder to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love New Zealand cricket. In some ways, I'm more of a fan of them than England. It seems because I just watch so much English cricket and kind of just allows me just to be a fan rather than being a reporter. But I just could not see this coming. I didn't see.
No.
I'm not necessarily today, and not with 4 overs to go. I'm talking at the start of the tournament. Just that team does not make any sense. But listening to what you had to say, well, maybe it does a little bit more.
Yeah, but in that group, they had Pakistan and India on them surfaces. Pakistan and India, you're thinking if they turn up, they both get through.
Yeah. And Afghanistan. You know,
And
they made short work of Afghanistan as well, who caused all manner of problems. G. Paul says,
shows your teams get through.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty of the game, isn't it? Harmy, your views on Daryl Mitchell from a lower order all-rounder to an opener. Again, you know, I said this on Talk Sport, you know, ahead of the 2010 World Cup, T20 World Cup, Keysvetter and Lum were not England's openers, were they?
Yeah.
And then England changed right before the start and they won the World Cup. I mean, this is a beauty. There's no stats that would tell you that Daryl Mitchell should be opening the bat, apart from his 6-hitting record in domestic T20 in New Zealand. This is not a stats call. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, there's stats and there's stats, isn't there? You know, do stats coming from the Super Smash in New Zealand, do they carry the same amount of weight as stats from the IPL? Either way, Daryl Mitchell doesn't play in the IPL, plays in the Blast, and he plays as Super Smash. And he's I'd forgot he was even batting when Jimmy Neesham was blazing away. I was like, oh yeah, Mitchell's still there.
And to be fair to him, there's a few things that I had to, we spoke to him on the Cricket Collective on Tuesday morning. I can understand why they went from lower order all-rounder to opening a batting in a way that the power play in this tournament was always going to be, you know, the key difference. If you can get boundaries in the power play, because it's going to be harder to hit later on, that is going to be. So I think I can understand why New Zealand went, right, he goes up front and see if we can get, you know, Mitchell and Guptill to get us off to a flyer each time. And he hadn't really done it. Got a runs against India. 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning, English time. He came on the Cricket Collective, and I sat in front of a guy for 10 minutes. And when I came off, I was talking to Neil Manthorpe, Scott Taylor, who producer of the show, and I was like, "What a bloke! What a human being! You know, such a really nice guy, humble guy." You know, he said he was, you know, so pleased to be playing in a World Cup. He said he felt lucky to be in this COVID world and environment, being able to travel and play cricket and be allowed to do that. He said he was lucky. That's what he said. His exact words were,
brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then in the heat of the battle, Adil Rashid bowls a ball to, I can't remember who it was, braze it down the ground. Adil and Mitchell go head-to-head, clash.
Yeah.
And Mitchell decides, no, I've stopped him from stopping the ball. I'm not running. And I can't. It must have been Conway. Conway's had to troop down to the other end because he refused to single down the ground. That's just typical New Zealand. I think Nasser actually said that on
it's brilliant. It was an amazing match. And the fact is, old man was in the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, his old man was on it. Actually, when he said you can't remember, you forgot who was batting with Neesham when you couldn't, that Mitchell was at the other end. I think there was about a 20-minute period where they showed more of his old man than they did of Daryl Mitchell. So, as much as he's knocked my side out and he's won the game for New Zealand, that Cricket Collective chat we had 2 days ago, I'm over the moon for the kid. I really am over the moon for the guy. And because of Daryl Mitchell, I want New Zealand to win. I don't think they will. I think Pakistan will. But I want New Zealand to win for him because my little experience with him, I just thought, what a really, really good guy he is.
Brilliant. Well, look, we're going to wrap things up. Suarez says, New Zealand are not underdogs. They kick India out every time. I think we should just call them favourites. Let's see how they do deal with the pressure of being called favourites. It's a very, very good point, Suarez.
Good point.
Listen, we're going to wrap things up, but I need a quick prediction for you. Australia, Pakistan tomorrow. How do you see it going?
I think a toss. I think this is a toss. It's a huge toss. I think if Pakistan win the toss, field first, and knock Australia's stuff, the wind out of the sails early, because that is their strength. The power play bowling for me is Pakistan's strength. If they do that, then I think there's only one winner in Pakistan. If Australia beat Pakistan in the power plays, then I think they've got a good chance of winning. But for me, I think Pakistan will edge this one, and it will be a Pakistan-New Zealand final on Sunday.
Brilliant stuff. Well, I'll be flying at that point, so I'll be trying to get in on a Singapore Airlines Wi-Fi at 30,000 feet above Singapore. I'll be taking off from Singapore to Auckland at about the time that hopefully David Warner is out. Oh no. Hopefully the moment that New Zealand and Pakistan are playing. Yeah, I'm confusing myself. Harmy, brilliant stuff. We'll be back tomorrow following that semi-final, so we'll see if your prediction is unerringly accurate as they normally are. Thanks so much for getting your questions into Bowl Fast Talk Straight. If you haven't already done so, and I'm pleased to see that Arian, or is it? No, it's let's have a look. Arpit has subscribed. Do so. Subscribe, review, leave a question, and we'll be back tomorrow. But now, thanks for watching.